Can I run through my catchers really quick? Just backup catcher options that I think would be good. Because I've pitched this idea to you before.
Yeah.
You have catchers?
I know one.
Well, yeah.
No. I know one guy you're going to say.
Danny Jansen. Buy. So Danny Jansen had a really good first 2 months. He had a, get this, 22 WRC plus in June. And now is at negative 21 in July. Now you buy this bait hoping he turns it around. But he's a rental. He's been very good in the past. And as a backup catcher, I think he would be very good. Joey Bart. Castaway, former top prospect. He's got a 126 WRC plus right now. You'd control him for a while. I don't know how sustainable his success is, but even if you don't believe in Joey Bart long-term, you have your two long-term catchers. If you don't like him, trade him in the offseason. But right now he hits 126 WRC plus. And Elias Diaz with the Rockies has never hit really in his career, but this year has a 105 WRC plus. So you know what? Even if his overall offensive game is not sustainable, I'm in to let him try and be a 105 WRC plus player for 2 months. And then worry about whatever else later. But he's also a rental, so he's not going to cost you really anything. Like, you could acquire two of these guys for someone that either is not in your top 30 or barely in your top 30 prospects. Joey Bart, I don't know if he costs much more because he's been so much more of a project, but since he's got so much more control, it might take just a tiny bit more, but really not that much.
Okay. I could buy into all those. I think we've talked about Jansen a lot. I think it's a guy that makes a ton of sense. We talked about him on Brock and Talk for a little bit on Friday. Sure. Backup catcher is just not where I am prioritizing my focus. I think if you find the time and the availability to go get a backup catcher, great. But there are so many other glaring issues that I think have to be addressed first.
But it could also just be something as much as another hitter off the bench, which they don't have.
Okay, but you need a viable second baseman and a dependable right fielder first, and maybe a first baseman.
I'm telling Elias Diaz and Danny Jansen will not cost you enough to say we need to get something else out of the way first.
Okay, but I do think they need to check other boxes first before they prioritize a backup catcher.
Probably, yes. But let's do all the above. I think it would all help.
Okay. All right, let's just go around the diamond. First base, in terms of the positions we think could be replaced. There's not a whole lot out there. Yandy Diaz is somebody I threw out because Mariners were linked to him in the offseason. He's got a 719 OPS right now, 110 WRC plus. He strikes out less than 15% of the time. Talk about a breath of fresh air that would be. Now, Yandy Diaz did not get off to a good start. However, after a bad April, 122 WRC plus in May, 134 in June, 132 so far here in July. It's pretty good. The only thing with him is he has 1.5 years left on his deal and a team option for 2026, so he may cost a little bit more.
He's on the older side. You would hope that would drive his price down, and you would hope you're buying into what he did each of the last 2 seasons rather than what he started at this year. But he is also on the older side, so you can be wary. You're allowed to be wary. The Mariners in the recent years have not had a sterling track record of acquiring and playing 30-plus-year-olds. It hasn't really turned out as well, but that was one of the options I wrote down as well. There's the obvious ones, too, because Pete Alonso and Christian Walker, while not a total soft buy, they're rentals. They are still rentals, so they are significantly easier to acquire than putting together a trade package for a Luis Robert Jr. So they remain options even in this soft buy, I think. But there's other options, too. We talked about Lamont Wade. Connor Joe is a very soft buy. Very soft. Slightly above league average hitter, but it's better than what you're getting right now. And then Jeimer Candelario for the Reds has played a little bit of first base. Just a little bit. And he's been in soft buy status at a 103 WRC+.
He just got signed to a 3-year deal in Cincinnati, though. I don't think they're shipping him away.
It doesn't cost. He would not, if you ate the money, it wouldn't cost that much. It's probably not priority number one. I think of any of the guys on this list, I think Yandy Diaz easily makes the most sense, and Jerry and the Rays have the most trade rapport. But for soft buying options, there are some options out there.
Yeah, and honestly, I think Christian Walker could make even more sense than that. Now, I know we've talked about him in other lights and other episodes before, but because it's a rental, if you were going to go make that package trade for Christian Walker and Paul Sewald, that could be your biggest splash of a trade at the deadline. And even that should not cost you that much. Here's what I think a trade for Walker and Yandy Diaz would cost you. 2 rentals. Sorry, Walker and Paul Sewald. You probably send Ty France back in the deal because he has team control. Diamondbacks, for the time being, would need a first baseman. And then I'd say it's one decent prospect. Maybe it's Michael Arroyo. And then 1 lottery ticket. That's what I think it would cost for a package of Sewald and Walker. Each guy's a rental. 2 months. Arroyo's a top 10 prospect in the system. He's been very good. That is the highlight guy you get back in the deal. But if you get those guys, it's a setup to win in 2024. You're not tied to him after that. If you want to re-sign him in free agency, fine. Or then you have Tyler Locklear waiting in the wings for 2025. So that is actually one trade that has been more talked about in the limelight that can make a lot of sense here.
And he would flat out be the best hitting option you could get at first base. Period.
Yes.
So
yeah.
in that case alone, sure, that works. I will say there should be one more guy included in that trade. You get a lot done with one trade with the Diamondbacks, but I'm going to get to that when we get to the outfielders because we're going around the diamond. So let's go to second base first before I say who that is.
Okay.
Brandon Lau makes the most sense of the Rays by far. I mean, he's a rental. He's been a plus hitter 7 years in a row. Over 100 WRC plus. 126, 117, 104, 136, 151, 127, 114. You didn't catch that. He's been very good for the last 7 seasons. He's been a big leaguer. He's walked over 10% of the time each of the last 5 years in a row. This dude generates offense at second base, and he's a rental. Rays are hanging out in no man's land. If you're not going to trade for Yandy Diaz, but the Rays will still pick up the phone, this just makes too much sense. If you take his 126 WRC plus and pair it next to Jorge Polanco's, where's he at now? Is he below 70? Is he at 70?
I think he's in the 70s.
Let's say he's at 72. That's a 54% increase in offensive production.
Oh boy.
54%.
Did you just hear yourself? Did you just hear what you said?
Oh, fuck.
I can't believe it took you that long to catch that. You didn't even do it on purpose. It wasn't even it wasn't even to the original point of the line. But
so that
I
means
can't believe
this
it took
should
you that
be a Mariners trade no matter what. It fits.
There you go. Yeah, Jorge Polanco is just below 70 now, WRC plus. So yes, even if you are sitting here thinking Brandon Lau is not some household name, I mean, he's pretty well known at this point. He's made All-Star games, right? He's been an All-Star game.
Yeah, he's been an All-Star.
I think. Yeah,
I think so.
So even if he's not Luis Robert, Vladdy, those guys aren't second baseman, but same thing. This is such an upgrade. You're telling me that nearly a 60% upgrade at second base is a bad idea? No, it's not. And the fact he's a rental and the fact the Mariners and Rays make trades all the time makes way too much sense. Of all the trades we can highlight, this one makes so much sense. Because, let's say it again. What's it even costing you? Somebody in your teens of your prospects, and probably the lower teens, should not be very much.
What about a different option that we said hard no on in the offseason? What about that? A certain second baseman for the Cincinnati Reds.
So I looked at Jonathan India a little bit, and funny enough, his profile is a lot better all of a sudden now than it was last year. That being said, the difference between Lau and India, Lau's profile fits T-Mobile Park much better. Like, he's barreling the ball up. He has some pretty decent hard hit rates. India still doesn't have great batted ball numbers. Some of his peripherals are better. Not everything. So am I more inclined to the idea now than this offseason? I guess. But he's got more control, so it's going to cost you more than Lau. and I still don't love the profile.
I don't know if it would be a soft buy for India, but he would make the team better. Walks a lot, doesn't strike out a whole bunch, and those home road splits, you mentioned, he's been about even. So it's, it's worked out. Maybe this is a trade you revisit in the offseason, perhaps. And I'd also like to push back on your, profile fits T-Mobile Park. We don't know what offense profiles fit T-Mobile Park. It's an utter mystery. Some players figure it out, and some players don't.
I still think hitting the ball hard helps. For example, would you feel comfortable giving up a haul for Isaac Paredes knowing that he is a Tropicana field merchant and just sprays the ball to left field, hitting wall-scraping home runs?
No, I wouldn't be. But I'm also not saying I'd rather have Jonathan India than Brandon Lau. I'm just saying it's not an option you ignore now, that some of the concerns that you and I said hard no on in the offseason have been alleviated. And he's getting older and more mature as a player. He's walking a whole lot more, striking out at the lowest rate of his career. All the things a hitter in his prime should be doing, and he's doing exactly that, which makes you feel more comfortable that he can sustain his offense.
Sure. And there's a couple other second base options out there. They just might be less viable. For example, Luis Rengifo's having a great year. I just don't think Jerry's making a trade with the Angels. I don't. So that one's probably out the door. We haven't gotten to outfielders yet, but that's why we're probably not going to spend much time on Taylor Ward. It's the same idea. The other one's Jazz Chisholm, who we probably don't need to spend a ton of time on because we've talked about him a lot. But he's somebody that could play second base or the outfield that would still make sense. We don't have to dive in too much on him, but he would make sense.
They'd make a lot of sense, and I just wonder how fresh he is at second base, because he really has not played a whole lot of second. It's been almost all outfield since the beginning of last year. So would that be too much of an in-season adjustment? Who knows? There's another Florida option, though. I mean, I saw Ahmed Rosario. This would be a soft buy. He's a rental, 109 WRC+. He's not going to hit for a ton of power. He's not a great defender, but it's a pretty significant upgrade from what you got.